That's what we expect from the youth league. Youth league ezothi uma labo abangakwazi ukuziphatha kahle, labo abangakhuliswanga kahle, bathuka i-ANC, bathuka ney'nkokheli ze-ANC, they must take them on. The youth league must take them on. And siyamazi ukuthi obani labo abangakhuliswanga kahle, abangayazi nepolitiki. The ANC Youth League are the ones who must take them on. Ngoba wonke amazulu, you must take them on. Comrades, as we prepare ukuya ku-NGC, 2 weeks siya ku-NGC, we know and we expect ukuthi i-ANC Youth League will not only offer penetrating critiques of our policies, but will also offer viable alternatives. They will offer well thought out propositions. They will come up with feasible strategies to ensure that we speedily achieve a truly prosperous, non-racial, non-sexist, and democratic society. Sifuna ukuziqhenya le-youth league yethu. Bathi mabephakama bekhuluma ku-NGC, we must hear that this is the youth. These are people who are standing on the shoulders of Nelson Mandela. These are people who are coming up with fresh ideas. People who are making a valuable contribution to the growth of our movement. They should be people who we know, as we go to the 2016 elections, they are going to be the forefront. They are going to make sure that the ANC wins all the councils in our country. That is what we expect from the youth league. Comrades, from this formation, the ANC has provided leadership at all critical moments in our history. As the Union of South Africa was established to the exclusion of the majority of our people, African leaders came together to form the South African Native National Congress. As the Second World War ended and the Atlantic Charter was drafted and adopted by the Allies, who were now prepared for a new world order, the ANC produced the African claims in Africa, in South Africa. And in keeping with this tradition, a few years later, Professor Z.K. Matthews proposed that a Congress of the People should be convened to draw up the Freedom Charter. The Congress Alliance took up this proposal with a great deal of enthusiasm. The first planning meeting of the Congress Alliance in March 1954 was held not so far from here at Utongati under the leadership of Chief Albert Luthuli. The Congress Alliance called on all South Africans to speak about freedom, to speak about freedom. Just as you are today saying, let us speak about economic emancipation. That is what the Congress Alliance said then. Some people may think, Umuti, you're mad when you say your overriding program is economic emancipation. But for some of us who are in the Congress, we know that you are not mad. We know that this is how a real wave starts. And this is how it can even begin to gain a lot of momentum. It called on the people of our country to draw up their demands for the things that they wanted to see as giving them freedom. As Madiba recounted, these demands came on serviettes, on paper torn from exercise books, on scraps of foolscap, and on the back of our own leaflets. People around our country engaged in this campaign in a vigorous way, and they came forward with their own ideas. They responded, and this led up to the adoption of the Freedom Charter, as we all know, in Cape Town in 1955. The Congress of the People was the biggest gathering of representatives of our people, and there were 300 people who came from KZN who represented this province in Cape Town. The Youth League in this province must be inspired by the Freedom Charter activists like Obaba, Uerikwala, Uachigumete, Moses Madida, Dorothy Nyembe, William Kanyile, Billy Naya, S.B. Mongal, Dr. Mutala, Chief Mini, and many others. They came from this province. And comrades, they were activists. They were intellectual giants as well. They came to the drafting of the Freedom Charter, armed with the proposals from our people, armed with their own intellect, and they came to make a meaningful contribution from this very province. And that is why today we have the living document, which is the lodestar, the ideological lodestar of our movement, which is the Freedom Charter. It enjoyed the participation of many of our people, as well as really key leaders in our struggle. The charter process itself had a profound impact on the Congress movement because it helped comrades, and I want us to listen to this carefully. When the Freedom Charter was drafted, the Congress movement was all over the place. Before it was drafted, rather, it was all over the place. It was when the idea of drafting the Freedom Charter was brought forward that they got galvanized, the organization started working together, they became active, and they went through the length and the breadth of the country. So the Freedom Charter, the idea of the Freedom Charter activated them, galvanized them. It also helped to build organization. So it was not just an idea, they actually practicalized the idea, and they used the idea of the Freedom Charter to generate life into the various structures of the Congress Alliance. Comrades, I'm saying this advisedly. Ogoti, the leadership of the ANC Youth League, that when you articulate this notion, which we love, which we embrace, which is also our program, but when you articulate the notion of economic emancipation in our lifetime, it must be backed up by organization. It must not just be empty words. We must back it up with organizational activities, programs. So it must not just be a slogan. We must make sure that we help to build our organization. And indeed, the Youth League, around this slogan, economic emancipation in our lifetime. The Freedom Charter drafting process cemented the non-racial character of the movement, both in terms of its content and its composition. That's what it did. It cemented the non-racial content of our movement. A few days ago, I was addressing the MK, MVA, NGC. And one of the issues that I raised, which was uncomfortable, Nati, my comrades, you are the, if you like, military veterans of our movement. You are the soldiers of our movement. But as I looked in the audience, I did not see people from the minority groups of our country. I did not see comrades from the colored community. I did not see comrades from the Indian community. I did not see comrades from the white community. And I knew that they had fought side by side with us in Angola, in Maputo, all over. Martin, where are they? Your job as MKMVA, I said, is to go and find them, to bring them in our midst, so that the ANC can be complete, because we are not complete as a non-racial organization if they are not there. So our task, comrades, the Freedom Charter cemented the non-racial character of the African National Congress. It showcased our non-racial character. It showed to all and sundry that we don't only use this as a slogan, Ukuti, South Africa belongs to all of us. We actually live it. So the Youth League was the engine, was the real engine in making sure that the Freedom Charter was drafted. As we return back to basics, that is where the Youth League must also go and be active. Yes, let us go and draw those white young South Africans into the Youth League. Let us go and draw those young white South Africans to be members of the Youth League. Yes, the colored South Africans, let them come into the Youth League. The Indian young people, let them come into the Youth League. The Youth League must be the home of all young people in our country, because you are the parliament of young people throughout the country. There is no other parliament like the ANC Youth League. This is the task that you must take up. Amanda, that is your task, comrades. That is one of your key tasks, because if we are standing on the shoulders of Nelson Mandela, Walter Sisulu, and others, that is what they did. During that period, they built the Congress Alliance. They built the Congress Alliance around the drafting of the Youth League, the Freedom Charter. They built the Congress Alliance and drew all national groups within the African National Congress Youth League. The process of drafting the Freedom Charter enabled the Congress movement to expand its organizational reach beyond the urban areas, transforming it fully into a national movement. Comrade Ishmael Vadi knows in his 1995 history of the Freedom Charter, and he says, the campaign for the Congress of the People and the Freedom Charter introduced within the liberation movement a degree of ideological uniformity and cohesion that did not exist previously. The slogan, the program, economic freedom in our lifetime, should be used to galvanize the Youth League. It should be used to make sure that we've got ideological clarity. We must be clear ideologically where we are going to. The Freedom Charter provided a clear and concise set of policies, aims, and objectives. It served as the vision of a post-apartheid South Africa, which was to be used as a mobilizing and organizing weapon in the struggle for democracy. It called for a fundamental restructuring of all aspects of South African society. When our forebears were drafting the Freedom Charter, they had focused their eyes on transforming South African society. Today, 60 years later, we celebrate the Freedom Charter not as a historical artifact, but as an enduring vision of a free and democratic society that continues to inspire and guide our struggle. It was the late Oliver Tambo who said, The Freedom Charter was not just another political document. The Congress of the People was not just another conference. The Freedom Charter is the sum total of the aspirations of our people, but more, it is the road to the new life. We have traveled far down this road, comrades. We have established a democratic state based on the will of the people. Apartheid laws and practices have been set aside. Our Constitution recognizes the equal rights for all, but we should also be clear what that moment in 1994 gave us. The moment in 1994, comrades, was just a breakthrough. It was a breakthrough. It gave us a position on the beach. It still left a lot of work to be done. It enabled us to have a sight into the hinterland. It gave us that advantage, that leverage, knowing that there was still much more work to be done. In 1994, we did not arrive in heaven. We did not arrive and find everything there. And that is why it is important for the African National Congress Youth League to focus on this very important struggle, which is economic emancipation in our lifetime. We are still confronted by poverty and hunger, as well as inequality and unemployment. We have yet to give full effect to the demand of the Freedom Charter that the people shall share in the country's wealth. This demand in the Freedom Charter has been a consistent thread that runs through the policies and programs of the ANC, defining its tactics and guiding its actions. In the strategy and tactics document adopted at the Morogoro Conference in 1969, the ANC said, "Our drive towards national emancipation is therefore in a very real way bound up with economic emancipation." This is what your movement said in 1969. Our people are deprived of their due in the country's wealth. Their skills have been suppressed, and poverty and starvation has been their life experience. The correction of these centuries-old economic injustices lies at the very core of our national aspirations. Our movement, in crafting the strategy and tactics document, recognized that the issue of economic emancipation is at the center of what needs to be done. And remembering that 1994 just gave us a breakthrough, and we just arrived at a particular position on the beach, it meant that there was still much more work to be done. As we cement the political gains of the last 2 decades, the task of economic transformation has gained prominence. And at the ANC's 53rd National Conference in Mangaung, we spoke about a second phase of our transition, which should have at its core a concerted drive to eradicate poverty, to reduce inequality, and to create more jobs. This imperative, comrades, is central also to the priorities outlined in the National Development Plan that was adopted and the outcomes contained in the government's medium-term strategic framework. As we grapple with the momentous task, comrades, we need to turn to the Freedom Charter for guidance and perspectives. When the Congress of the People declared that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, black and white, it made the bold claim that all South Africans have a right to an equal share of the country's national resources. That's what the Congress of the People say. They must share in ownership of, access to, and the means of production. That is a given, and that was what was decided. They must all have a fair share of the national income and public resources. The Freedom Charter, comrades, envisages, yes, a mixed economy with both the public and the private sector owning assets of our country. It envisages a developmental state that plays a leading role in ensuring economic access to those previously denied economic opportunity. What this means, comrades, is that we must now fully engage in the battle, in the struggle to increase and expand economic access. As we chant our slogan, economic emancipation in our lifetime, we must begin to give it content. We must begin to give it meaning. We must ask ourselves, what does it mean? What programs can we embark on to make sure that it becomes real? Politically, we are able to say, yes, we want 40% of councillors must be young people. We should also, at the economic level, be able to say, this is what we want, this is how it should be done, and so on. This must come as ideas from the ANC Youth League. The ANC Youth League must not be shy, it must not hold back, it must articulate some of these ideas within the broad framework of the policy of the African National Congress. It envisages a state with sufficient legal authority and economic means to ensure decent working conditions and to take steps to improve the lives of the poor and marginalized. Earlier, yes, many of you were applauding the idea of that we should not casualize young people. And young people must be employed, they must get decent jobs, they must get benefits and so forth. Yes, comrades, that is what you should be articulating. That is what you should be saying. And we should then come up with ideas of how we are going to do that. I support that. I support that approach, and let us give it legs. Let us give it legs so that it can run. It envisages, yes, a national democratic society. We must understand, comrades, that the Freedom Charter is not just a set of policy instruments. It is a vision. It is a vision of a new society to which we must give effect. The task, comrades, of building a new society is the task that the African National Congress is involved in. What we are doing as we transform South Africa from the ashes of apartheid, we are in the process of building a new society. In 1994, comrades, and this for me is important. This for me is important. As young people, one of the things we must do, we must sharpen our understanding of the economy of South Africa. We must not just be talking our slogans. We must know how our economy works. We must know what makes up our economy. The ANC Youth League members must take the trouble to understand economic issues. Comrades, because the life that we are trying to give our people is driven by the economy. And if we don't take the trouble to understand the economy, we will just be shouting and chanting our slogans. What is expected of us as youth leaders is to make sure ukuthi izinto zomnotho siyazizwisisa kahle ukuthi umnotho uqhuba kanjani. Kufanele ukuthi si-understand uma kukhulunywa comrades nge-GDP, gross domestic product. You as members and leaders of the ANC Youth League, you must have a keen understanding ukuthi kukhulunywa ngani. Kungabi lento yokuthi no, nizwile bakhuluma ngo-GDP ungamazi nokuthi u-GDP yini. Angithi nezwa comrades. So comrades, we must be sharp politically. Upolitiki waka ANC Youth League must be sharp. Ungabi nomuntu ozosiphatha lapho. Sibe sharp ngepolitiki ka ANC. But let's go an extra mile. I would like us to be sharp when it comes to the economy. Sesifundise, if ungazange uthole ithuba lokuyofunda i-economy esikolweni, sifundise comrade. Amaphepha akho. In-high school mayivulwe in-high school ukuthi sikwazi ukuyi-understand. Let us understand what drives the economy of our country. To a point, comrades, when ucomrade Khanyago, ugovernor we-Reserve Bank yethu, ayofunda i-statement se-committee yabo ekhuluma ngokuthi ama-interest rate ayanyuka, members of the Youth League must understand what it means. Le 40% esifunayo, i-understand yonke leyo. Ungathi mawuyobuzwa ukhansela bakubuza ukuthi uKhanyago unyuse i-interest ngehalf, mhlawumbe bethi nge-500 basis points, amehlo wakho aseyajika kanje ungasazi. Comrades, that is what you want, and you must take up their responsibility. You must take it up, and ngoba thina la siphuma khona comrades, la siphuma khona laba bebeqhuba lelizwe lethu nge-apartheid, azange basifundisa, azange basinika amathuba ukuthi siyofunda. So it is upon us ukuthi siyozifundisa, uzifundise ukuthi i-GDP, ukuthi uma uphuma lapho uthi mfana kithi uyayazi i-GDP yase-America, uyayazi i-GDP yase-England, yase-South Africa uyayazi na. Mabethi gross national product, which we reside as an ANC youth leader, because you are the future. And you must know your statistics. You must know your stats. And comrade, I'm saying this because you are the future of our country. You must understand your statistics. You must know what the impact of anything is, disposable income. Disposable income, you must know what it means for here in KZN. 40% your fully budget. We fully budget. Budget, cancel you see, it doesn't help with X, 40%, and in the end, you are not going to do the right thing. And comrades, this is important. We must then have a keen way of mixing our outstanding political understanding of all these things together with our economic understanding of things. And of course, our social understanding of things is a given. But we must know what is the impact of economics on our politics. What is the impact of economics on our social developmental agenda. Comrades, now this is what the Hulument, Mandela, Mbeki, Sholozi has done to this country. You know, a businessman, a leading businessman yesterday was telling us as officials of the ANC, Wati, I am a businessman. I run a very big business. Wati, there is no other party in South Africa that can run this country in the way that the ANC has been running this country for the last 20 years. How come? Tell me more. What is the way the economy has grown since 1994, right up till just last year, because now we are in a global economic downturn. But this country called South Africa has never seen such economic growth ever since Yabako, since the years of Ushaka, since the time of Moshweshwe, and so on. This country has seen unbelievable growth. And then he went on to say, the lives of many of our people have improved. Even us, who don't support your party, who are business people, we can see with our own eyes, you have really changed South Africa for the better, for what it is. That's what he said. Now, comrades, that is what we have done. We inherited an economy that has serious problems. And economic growth has grown. And the other point he made, you look at the people who are in employment. 20 years ago, some 8 million people were working. Today, we've got 16 million people, 14 or 16 million people who are working. Even employment has increased. But at the same time, because now we've got more people in our country, we've got 55 million, there are more jobs that have to be created. And then he said, that is where the real challenge is. And they said, let us work together to create more jobs so that our people can have a better life. All I can tell you, comrades, this country has never had a government that is as committed as the ANC government to making sure that it addresses the economic challenges our country faces. We are the only government that this country has ever had that has a vision, that is looking forward, and that is working day and night to make sure that we solve our problems. The African National Congress, So, comrades, we've also managed a lot of things. Have we had challenges along the way? Yes, we've had challenges. Have we had difficulties along the way? Yes, we've had difficulties. But all I can tell you that we have undertaken the most unprecedented social infrastructure program the country, possibly the continent, has ever seen. We have built dams, we have built roads, we've built schools, we've done all that. But in the course of doing so, and largely, comrades, in response to the call that has been made by the Youth League, we've set aside a role to be played by the youth of our country. And we have said, when it comes to procurement, the big procurement processes of the government, the youth must have set aside. When it comes to public employment, the youth must have set aside. And that is economic emancipation. But at the same time, comrades, even the Ministry of Small Business, Comrade Lindy Wazulu, she's focusing on building small businesses, also for young people, to make sure that young people get into those small businesses. Our focus is to make sure that young people, because the majority of them are not working, get great opportunities. Now, comrades, what is now required? You, as the ANC Youth League, you must now come up with ideas. You must come up with new ideas. But comrades, your ideas must not only be based on our slogans. It must not only be on our slogans. It must be based on your understanding of the political economy. Political economy. The political economy of our country, so that when you put forward ideas, you take into account what the political situation of our country is, vis-a-vis the African continent, and vis-a-vis the world as a whole. As we craft our policies, we must be able to say, yes, as the African National Congress Youth League, these are our new, fresh, progressive policies that are forward-looking. You know, you are an amazing organization. You are truly an amazing organization, in case you did not know. Because sometimes you come up with ideas. You come up with ideas, sometimes, and then you don't follow through. I'll tell you about 2 campaigns that were started by the Youth League, which were really forward-looking. You came up with a program, what did you call it? iPads. Every learner an iPad. I don't know why but the other program that you came up with, which shocked a number of people, was the program of sanitary pads for young girls. You are the ones who came up with it. Today, this program is now being led by other people. It's no longer you as the African National Congress Youth League. And we want you to be leading that project. I spoke about this, and I almost spoke like an expert when you meet him. And I was really chanting the program that you had started as the African National Congress Youth League. So what I'm saying is, come up with ideas, follow through with those ideas. Make sure that everybody around you understands what you're coming up with. The issue of unemployment. You are the ones who are supposed to come up because you are most affected. As the youth, you are most affected by unemployment. Come up with proposals. How can we deal with the issue of unemployment? How can we get the young people of our country into jobs? You are the ones who are supposed to be coming up with ideas like a national youth service. You must come forward and say, we want a national youth service because it will help us to be disciplined, it will help us to be this and this and that. Those are the types of programs that some of us would want to hear you coming up with. So what I'm pleading for, as young people do come up with ideas on how we are going to reduce poverty, how we are going to reduce unemployment, how we are going to get young people into small and medium enterprises. How are we going to strengthen the hand of the NYDA? How are we going to make sure that the departments of government, both at local government level, provincial level, and at national level, work to increase the capability of young people and to give them opportunities? We must use, comrades, this occasion of the 60th anniversary of the Freedom Charter to reflect on the gains and our shortcomings. We must mobilize all our people, not only to speak of freedom, but also to work together to achieve that freedom. You are the ones who must do what Mandela and Sisulu and the others did. Galvanize various organizations so that we move towards achieving common goals. And it is only when we do this that we can succeed. I could ask you a casual question. How many of you who are sitting here know and understand the National Development Plan? I may find that many of you haven't read the National Development Plan. And as youth leaders, I throw the challenge at you, comrades. Go and read the National Development Plan. Understand it. You know, when we were still my union, what we used to do, the union in which I was in, National Union of Mine Workers, the city must cash umuntu. Uma eza for interview. The city simbuza ubani igama lakho asho. Uphuma phi asho. Uke wasebenza kuphi asho. Bese siyaqala ke sithi uyayazi freedom charter. Athi yebo ngiyayazi. Sithi okay awusinike ama-clause I4 e-freedom charter. Thola ukuthi amehlo abantu ahamba kanje abayazi. So similarly, mina premier bengathi uma sizothola le 40% le 40% bengizawuthi uma uza before you're a councillor usitshele ukuthi uyayazi na i-NDP uma ufuna ukuba kuleso the National Development Plan, because kunokwenzeka ukuthi siyakhuluma nje i-GDP asiyazi, i-NDP asiyazi, i-Freedom Charter asiyazi. So mina-ke ngithi give yourself the opportunity, give yourself the time to also understand the National Development Plan, because the National Development Plan talks about where we are going, what we want to achieve. We should also understand, Ogoti, as things are now looking tricky for our country with our mineral resources. Yes, we talk about the question of mineral resources. I want the Youth League to come forward and say, Ngokeli is the African National Congress. When it comes to mineral resources, this is how we believe we can beneficiate our mineral resources. Let us come up with ideas so that leadership of the ANC Youth League, we can give meaning and content to the issue of economic emancipation in our lifetime. That is something that we need to focus on. We also must give content to the question of land. The Constitution guides what we should do with land. Today, quite a bit of land has been bought for our people. Large tracts of land are lying fallow. The question we would ask is, does the ANC Youth League have ideas? Do we have ideas on what to do with the land that is lying fallow? What activity can we generate on the land that was taken away from us, which the government has now had to retake or rebuy to give to our people? What can we do with all those? Comrades, I'm throwing all these out as challenges that you need to meet, to address. We are talking, comrades, we are talking about the re-industrialization of our country. What does it mean? What does it mean? We need to give substance. We need to give content to that and talk about how do we go about reindustrializing. We want to hear the young people of our country coming to us or coming to the government and say, Sifuna uguti siyotrainwa, sifuna ukuqeqeshwa. We want to be trained so that we can be manufacturers. Train us for training in large numbers. Recently, we went to China, we went to Japan. When we came back, we came back namathuba amaningi for abantu abasha ukuthi bayofunda, both in China and in Japan. Umongameli, whenever he goes overseas, he always comes back with bags full of opportunities. The same is what happened when we went to China and Japan for artisan training, engineering training, and so forth. Comrades, we want young people of our country to be skilled. You have to come forward. You have to demand all those things. You must demand. Because if you don't demand, comrades, those opportunities will just lie fallow. We were told that China had offered us quite a number of opportunities. We only took a few, very few, fully paid scholarships. Where are the young people? Now, this is where the ANC Youth League must be very active. The ANC Youth League must be very active to make sure that we fill those opportunities and we get skills for our people. Comrades, yes, the doors of learning must be open. We want the doors of learning to be open. Yes, and I know that what we do desire is that there should be free education. Is that not the case? That's what you want. But we want that must be discussed. As it is now, we are giving scholarships to thousands of young people. NSFAS is funding many young people. There are shortages, there are challenges. What is that meant to do? It is meant to fulfill the dream of economic emancipation in our lifetime. Because if a young person gets an engineering degree, yes, they will become economically emancipated. So we need to speed all that up. Comrades, we are giving priority to a lot of training opportunities to young people. But what I am calling for tonight, as I conclude, is that the ANC Youth League has a great opportunity. You've never had an opportunity as great as this. You've got access to the leadership of the movement. You've got influence when it comes to policies of the movement. You've got access to the structures of the movement. And comrades, you've got an education system that is producing many of you as educated young people. Use those opportunities. Take up the challenge I am throwing at you. Understand the economy. The last one that I always talk about, Ubandabasha, is about reading. About reading. We don't read. Many young people don't read. We do not read. As Fundi, I always tell people, and this I repeat all the time, and I do it purposely. I have a friend who's been working for me for the last 22 years. When she started working for me, she said she read 50 books a year. 50 books a year. And at that time, I used to read 40 books a year. I've now come down to 30 books a year. She has come down to about 45 books a year. Every year, she reads those many books, almost one book a week. And quite often, as I go around the country, I ask young people, this year, so for the Ingwatezingaki. I'm not going to embarrass you. The last thing I want to raise is that, comrades, ANC Youth League members, give yourself time to read. Read books, absorb knowledge, get knowledge into your system. Feel sick if you are not reading a book, because through that, you'll be able to be that 40% that is clever, that is effective, that provides good leadership. That is what we want for you. Comrades, I end up by saying, It is only then that the ANC Youth League will be respected. You will be respected. You will have